Lucille Ball, the beloved comedy icon who brought laughter to millions, passed away in 1989. However, for the new owners of her luxurious Beverly Hills home, it seems the laughter hasn't entirely stopped. Shortly after moving into the grand estate, the couple began noticing odd occurrences. At first, it was small things, a faint giggle echoing in the hallway when no one was there, the muffled sound of footsteps pacing the floor above them in the dead of night. Convinced it was their imagination, they brushed it off. But then, things became stranger. One evening, while entertaining guests, the group collectively heard a woman's voice faintly humming the tune of I Love Lucy's iconic theme song. The sound seemed to emanate from the piano room, though no one was there. The homeowners, skeptical by nature, chalked it up to old pipes or ambient noise until one particularly chilling incident. Late one evening, the lady of the house was reading in the living room when she caught a glimpse of something in the mirror above the fireplace. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but as she turned her head, she froze. There, behind her reflection, was a faint but unmistakable figure of a woman with Lucille Ball's trademark red curls, watching her with an amused smile. The vision lasted only a moment before fading, but it was enough to send shivers down her spine. Her husband dismissed her experience as a dream, but the very next night, he too encountered something he couldn't explain. Waking to the sound of laughter, Lucille's distinctive, hearty chuckle, he walked into the kitchen to find every cupboard door wide open. The air smelled faintly of perfume, one he later swore matched Lucille's favorite, white shoulders. Rumors began to swirl among neighbors and visitors. Contractors working on home renovations refused to stay past dusk, claiming they heard whispers and felt as if they were being watched. A family friend who stayed overnight described waking to the sensation of someone gently tugging at her blanket, accompanied by the sound of a woman softly saying, "Showtime." The haunting seemed playful rather than sinister. One neighbor, who had known Lucille in life, claimed the occurrences perfectly matched her mischievous sense of humor. "Lucy always loved to entertain," she remarked. "Maybe she's not quite ready to take her final bow." To this day, those who have visited Lucille Ball's former home claim they've experienced something out of the ordinary, whether it's the faint strains of a long-forgotten sitcom theme or the ghostly echo of laughter that only Lucy could deliver. For her fans, the thought of her spirit lingering isn't frightening. It's comforting. After all, what better legacy for a woman who spent her life spreading joy than to continue bringing smiles, even from the other side? Perhaps Lucille Ball isn't haunting her old home. Perhaps she's simply reminding the world that her comedy and her presence will never truly fade away. As weeks turned into months, the new homeowners grew accustomed to the oddities. They even began to find comfort in the idea that Lucille Ball's playful spirit might still roam the halls. But one evening, the atmosphere shifted. What had once felt light-hearted and mischievous suddenly took on a darker, more intense energy. It began on a stormy night when the couple hosted a small dinner party. Guests marveled at the charm of the old Hollywood estate, but as the evening progressed, the lights flickered, and the air seemed to grow heavy. A chill settled over the dining room, causing one guest to remark how the room suddenly felt like a stage before the curtain rises. Then came the sound. Faint at first, like a distant audience murmuring, it grew louder, more distinct. The group fell silent, straining to listen. It wasn't murmuring, it was applause. Faint, rhythmic clapping seemed to echo from the grand staircase. One brave guest decided to investigate, climbing the stairs while the others waited anxiously below. As he reached the landing, the clapping stopped abruptly. Moments later, he returned, pale-faced, clutching an old photograph in his hand, a picture of Lucille Ball in her prime, framed and left lying in the middle of the upstairs hallway. "This wasn't here earlier," he whispered. The next day, the homeowners searched the house for answers. While exploring the attic, they discovered a locked trunk, its surface marked with decades of dust. With some effort, they pried it open and uncovered an assortment of personal items. A script annotated in Lucille's handwriting, a pair of worn dance shoes, and a stack of yellowed letters. Most were fan mail, but one letter stood out. It was unsigned, written on elegant stationery, and addressed to the real Lucy. The note read, You've hidden her away, but she's still here. She's waiting for her final scene. Confused and unnerved, the couple tried to piece together its meaning. Who had written the letter, and what did it mean by hidden her away? Their curiosity turned to unease when they noticed that, since finding the trunk, the activity in the house had intensified. Doors slammed shut with no warning, and shadows flickered just beyond the corner of their vision. The laughter, once so warm and inviting, now sounded distant and strained, as if muffled by something unseen. Late one night, as the couple lay in bed, they were jolted awake by the sound of a woman's voice. It was clear and unmistakable. Find her. The words sent chills down their spines. Who or what was her? And what did Lucille Ball's lingering presence have to do with it? As they dug deeper into the history of the home, the couple discovered an old rumor that had circulated among Hollywood elites during Lucille's heyday, a rumor about a secret, a tragedy, and a piece of her life she had fought to keep hidden. But before they could uncover the truth, something happened that neither of them could explain. At precisely midnight, every clock in the house stopped ticking, and the lights in the hallway flickered out. The sound of heavy breathing filled the air, followed by the unmistakable sound of high heels clicking across the wooden floor. Then came the laughter again, louder this time, echoing through every room. But it wasn't just Lucille's laughter anymore, there were other voices. Dozens of them, all laughing in unison. The sound grew deafening, shaking the walls, and the couple could swear they saw shadows swirling together at the top of the staircase, forming a figure that seemed to watch them with intent. Showtime, the figure whispered, before vanishing into darkness. The couple knew then that this was no ordinary haunting. Lucille Ball's playful energy might have lingered, but something else had been awakened, something tied to her past, something that didn't want to be forgotten, and it wouldn't rest until its story was brought to light. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. After the terrifying events of that night, the couple found it impossible to sleep. They decided to leave the house temporarily, seeking refuge in a nearby hotel. But even away from the property, they couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was still watching them. The next morning, the husband contacted a local historian who specialized in old Hollywood lore. Together, they began digging through public records and archives, searching for any clues about the mysterious note or the house's history. What they found was more unsettling than they'd anticipated. The house, it turned out, wasn't just any Beverly Hills mansion, it had a reputation. Before Lucille Ball purchased it in the 1950s, the property had passed through the hands of several prominent figures in the entertainment industry. Each owner had reported strange occurrences. Sudden drafts in sealed rooms, disembodied voices, and unexplained bouts of bad luck. One owner, a silent film actress who lived there in the 1920s, had written in her diary about seeing a woman in white standing at the foot of her bed, staring with hollow eyes. But the deeper mystery lay in Lucille's connection to the house. Through a series of interviews with aging Hollywood insiders, the historian uncovered a peculiar story. During her years in the home, Lucille was said to have hosted private gatherings, exclusive parties, attended by a select group of close friends and confidants. These weren't just social events. They were rumored to involve seances. One guest, an anonymous source from the golden age of Hollywood, claimed Lucille had a deep fascination with the afterlife. Lucy believed the house held something special, the source explained. She used to say it was built on a crossroads, a place where energy couldn't help but linger. She wanted to connect with it, whatever it was. The husband relayed this to his wife, who was growing increasingly uneasy. "Do you think she summoned something?" she asked. Before he could answer, their phones buzzed simultaneously. It was the house's security company, alerting them to an alarm triggered inside the property. They returned cautiously, bringing the historian with them. The house was eerily silent, but one detail stood out immediately. The door to the attic, which had been locked since they found the trunk, was now wide open. Inside, they found the space transformed. The previously dusty and cluttered attic was cleared, its walls now adorned with old Hollywood memorabilia. Among them was a large, black and white photograph of Lucille standing on the mansion's staircase. She was smiling, but the longer they stared at the image, the more unsettling it became. In the background of the photo, faint but visible, was another figure, a woman in white, standing in the shadows of the upper landing. Her face was obscured, but her posture was rigid, almost confrontational. "Who is that?" the wife whispered, but no one had an answer. The historian leaned closer, examining the photo. "This can't be," he muttered. "I've seen this picture before, but she wasn't in it. This is different." As they stared, the temperature in the attic plummeted. Their breath became visible, and a strange sound filled the air, a faint, rhythmic tapping, like high heels on the wooden floorboards below. "It's her," the wife whispered, her voice trembling. Then the laughter began again. But this time it was layered, Lucille's joyous chuckle intertwined with something deeper, guttural, and menacing. The tapping grew louder, closer, until it stopped directly beneath them. Suddenly, the attic light flickered, and a voice clear and commanding spoke from the shadows. "Tell my story, or leave this house forever." Before they could respond, the light bulb shattered, plunging them into darkness. In the brief flash of light, the wife swore she saw the woman in white standing inches from them, her hollow eyes locked on hers. When the lights returned, the attic was empty, save for the photograph. But now, the woman in white was no longer in the background. She was front and center, staring directly into the lens, as if she'd been waiting for someone to see her. The couple knew they couldn't leave things as they were. Lucille's playful spirit was still there, but so was something far older, far angrier, and far more dangerous. The house demanded attention, and until they uncovered the truth, it seemed determined to keep them trapped in its grip. The couple's nerves were frayed, but the message was clear: they couldn't simply walk away from this. The house, or whatever force resided within it, wanted its story told. But whose story? Lucille Ball's? The mysterious woman in white? Or someone or something else entirely? The historian suggested they consult Lucille's personal archives, stored in the care of a local museum. With special permission, they gained access to a trove of her belongings: scripts, letters, photographs, and journals. Among the neatly catalogued items, they found a faded leather notebook labeled "The Quiet Years." Inside were Lucille's handwritten entries, dating back to her early years in Hollywood. The entries began with the excitement of a young starlet climbing the ranks, but as the pages turned, her tone shifted. She described unsettling events in her home: cold drafts in closed rooms, the sound of faint crying late at night, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. One entry stood out: "The woman won't leave. I've seen her twice now, once on the stairs, once in my bedroom mirror. She's not angry, but she's sad, so sad. She whispers at night, but I can't make out her words. I don't know what she wants from me." The final entry was the most chilling. The ink was smudged, the handwriting frantic. "I tried to reach her again tonight with Madamus. The circle broke. She's not who we thought. She wants something else, something she lost. I'm afraid of what might happen if I can't find it." The notebook ended abruptly. There was no explanation of what Lucille had been searching for, or what she believed the woman wanted. But the couple knew one thing: this was far bigger than Lucille's curiosity about the afterlife. They returned home, determined to dig deeper. Late that night, as they reviewed Lucille's journal, they noticed a strange detail. Several of the entries included references to an old mirror in the master bedroom. Lucille described the mirror as the center of everything, a piece she was inexplicably drawn to. The couple realized they had seen the mirror before it was still mounted in their bedroom. A large, antique piece with an ornate frame, it had been too heavy to remove when they first moved in. Something about it now felt ominous, as though it pulsed faintly with an unseen energy. Unable to resist their growing curiosity, they decided to investigate. The historian joined them, and together they carefully removed the mirror from the wall. Behind it, they found a small, hidden compartment. Inside was a stack of old photographs, each depicting the house over the decades. But in every photograph, no matter the year, the same woman appeared: the woman in white. Sometimes she was barely visible, a shadow in the background. Other times, she stood front and center, staring directly at the camera. "This can't be possible," the historian whispered. These photos span nearly a century. Whoever she is, she's been here long before Lucille. The final photograph was the most disturbing. It showed the woman in white standing on the staircase, her face clearer than ever before. Her eyes were sunken, her expression grim, and her hand was outstretched, pointing directly at the camera or at whoever was holding it. Suddenly, the room grew icy cold. The mirror, still propped against the wall, began to fog up, as though someone were breathing on it from the inside. Slowly, words appeared, etched into the glass by an unseen hand. "She is buried below." Before they could react, a loud crash echoed from the basement. The sound of splintering wood and shattering glass reverberated through the house. The couple exchanged a terrified glance. "We need to go down there," the husband said, though his voice wavered with fear. The historian hesitated. "Are you sure? If she's buried there, we don't have a choice," the wife said firmly. "If we don't face this, it won't stop." Armed with flashlights, they descended the narrow staircase into the basement. The air was damp and heavy, and the single light bulb overhead flickered weakly. In the far corner of the room, where old furniture and forgotten boxes were stacked, they found the source of the noise. The concrete floor had cracked open, revealing a jagged hole. From within the hole came a faint sound, a rhythmic tapping, like high heels on a hard surface. The sound grew louder as they approached, echoing up from the darkness below. Then, just as they reached the edge, the tapping stopped, and a voice, soft, trembling, but unmistakably clear, rose from the shadows. "Don't leave me." They froze, peering into the void. But before they could move, something shifted in the darkness, and a hand, pale, thin, and impossibly long, reached out from the hole, grasping for the light. The pale hand reached toward them, its fragile fingers stretching as if pleading for help. The wife let out a gasp, stepping back, but the husband stood frozen, unable to look away. Then the voice came again, faint but desperate. "Please, help me." Summoning his courage, the historian leaned closer to the jagged hole. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. For a moment, the only response was silence. Then, from the shadows, the voice replied, "She buried me, to hide the truth. You have to bring me back." The historian's flashlight flickered, casting long, eerie shadows across the basement walls. He turned to the couple. "This isn't just a ghost. This is someone who was wrong, someone who's been waiting a very long time for someone to listen." The wife, still trembling, nodded. "We have to do something. We can't just leave her like this." Using a crowbar and their bare hands, they began to clear away the debris around the hole. Beneath the cracked concrete, they uncovered an old wooden box, its surface warped and discolored by time. When they pried it open, a wave of cold air swept through the basement, extinguishing their flashlights. In the pitch black, they heard a low, mournful wail, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the house. Then, slowly, the lights returned, revealing the contents of the box. A bundle of decayed fabric and bones, wrapped tightly together. The wife gasped, It's her body." The historian examined the remains carefully, noticing something tucked within the fabric. It was a locket, tarnished but intact. Inside, they found a tiny photograph of a young woman and a man, their faces faded but still recognizable. The woman in the photo was unmistakably the same figure who had haunted them, the woman in white. But the man was Lucille Ball's first husband, Desi Arnaz. "What does this mean?" the husband asked, his voice a mix of confusion and fear. The historian's face grew pale. "I've heard stories about Lucille and Desi's turbulent relationship. What if she found out about an affair? What if this woman wasn't just some random spirit? What if she was someone Lucille knew? Someone she felt betrayed by?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Was it possible that Lucille, the beloved queen of comedy, had been involved in something far darker than anyone could have imagined? As if in response to their thoughts, the walls of the basement began to groan, and the air grew heavier. The voice returned, louder this time. "She knew. She buried me to keep the world from knowing. But now you know. Tell them. Tell everyone. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and the tapping sound returned, this time accompanied by the faint strains of laughter, Lucille's laughter, echoing through the basement. The couple and the historian grabbed the box and scrambled up the stairs, just as the house seemed to exhale a final, mournful sigh. Outside, they called the police, who arrived to investigate the remains. The media quickly caught wind of the discovery, and the story of Lucille Ball's house and its dark secrets spread like wildfire. In the days that followed, the couple noticed a change in the house. The laughter stopped, the whispers faded, and the oppressive weight that had hung in the air was gone. It was as if the house itself had finally been freed. The remains were identified as belonging to a young woman who had gone missing in the 1940s, a woman who had reportedly been close to Desi Arnaz. The truth about her death was never fully uncovered, but the story of her haunting and Lucille Ball's possible involvement became a part of Hollywood legend. The couple eventually decided to leave the house, unable to shake the memories of what they had uncovered. But they would always remember Lucille's final message, whispered in the shadows of the basement as they fled. Showtime's over, and with that, the house fell silent, taking its secrets with it into the quiet of history. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.